That's not the way you want to start your mini challenge career, is it, for Jason Ackermanis? The good news is that his team worked through the night to fix that car, in fact, until 4 a.m. this morning, and Acker will be back for this race, which is the third race, a 14-lapper ahead of us. There he is, back in the cockpit and ready to rumble. Mark Larkham's in commentary for this one alongside Aaron Noonan.
Yeah, boy, oh boy, he really has added the headlines this weekend, Jason Ackermanis. 292 AFL games, 376 goals for both the Brisbane Lions and his current team, the Western Bulldogs. Caught up with him a little earlier in the day. He took it easier in the first race today, spent some time just running by himself and went faster and faster and faster. And he reckons he's going to have a go in this one.
Well, I don't know, mate. Having a contract that says you've got to pay for the damage will always pull you up pretty quick, smart. I actually gave Ackers a run in the passenger seat of my V8 car a couple of years ago, and I've got to say, when he got out of the car, unlike a lot of people, he was very relaxed, and which is just a sign of how relaxed he looks here today. I think he'll do all right.
I reckon a guy relaxed too is the guy at the head of the queue, Paul Stokel. He's won the first two races this weekend. Jason Bargwanna was second in race 2. He'll start on the front row. But the difference there is because Bargs has been so successful in the last few rounds, he's carrying 50 kilograms of success ballast, which really slows you down at a track like this where you go from slow corners onto long straights.
Mate, and a lot of this is about carrying mid-corner speed, these sorts of cars that aren't overly powered, so I'd imagine that'd be a bit like towing a caravan. But one thing Jason Bargwanna does like, he loves a challenge.
Former Larkham motorsport driver, you know him well.
Yeah, he is, mate. I love his character. He's one of those guys, when the chips are down, the wheels are falling off, he doesn't say anything, he just gets on with the job.
Now, speaking of the job at hand, there's a championship up for grabs here in Mini Challenge. This is the penultimate round. The last round is at Oran Park. Neil McFadden leads the way, although Paul Stokel's 2 wins have leapt him from 5th coming into this weekend. He's up to 2nd. He's 75 points behind. It's a bit of a margin, but it's doable. 60 points for a win in each of the races. This one's not over and done with yet.
No, it's not, and it's good to see, I mean, the inception of this category in this country, that intensity in the championship starting to evolve already. You know, to me, one of the great things about categories like Mini Challenge, it gives teams an opportunity to look at drivers in equal equipment, and that's often hard to find. And as a route for a young driver, this is starting to emerge as absolutely a possibility.
Now, warm-up laps, we've seen what they can do this weekend. Let's see that everyone gets through things okay. You can see weaving backwards and forwards, trying to develop some heat in the Dunlop control tie that they use in this class. Let's have a look at the grid. Paul Stokel and Jason Bargwanna on the front row. Neil McFadden and Jason White on row 2. Jason White, Targa Tasmania winner. He's used to being on the bitumen, but not with other cars around him. Paul Fiore, Todd Fiore, the brothers back on rows 3 and 4. Scott Bargwanna, Jason's cousin there, so plenty of family ties in this one. Paul Morris from 9th, David Stilwell in 10th. Nathan Gear is starting a long way back. He's 3rd in the championship, but he's had all sorts of problems this weekend, an engine that's been down on power, so he's pretty frustrated. Stuart Appleby from 13th, and Jason Ackermanis will go from the final row of the grid, position 16. A little bit of a smaller field in the Mini Challenge, but the racing has got better and better as the drivers have got used to these cars.
Yeah, it's become more about quality than quantity. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Interested just listening to Stuart Appleby's comments there. Isn't it funny how anyone that has succeeded in their own sport can apply and carry those disciplines into other areas of business or sport, and I think that's great to watch.
Here's Acker. A lot more serene on the warmer-up.
Well, have a look. I mean, yesterday he was going from white line to white line. He's pretty well straight ahead.
Yeah.
And look, easy thing to do. Cold tyres. It seems odd, but any race vehicle is very, very difficult to drive. Harder than your road car on a circuit when the tyres are stone cold. They really are.
He's off to the States this week with the Bulldogs for pre-season training camp before they line up again for another crack at the premiership in the AFL next year. But he's got a task at hand today. Stokel and Bargwanna, they are the form guys in the Mini Challenge. Neil McFadden's got a handy buff in the championship, but they've had a problem with that car in the last few rounds. They reckon they're on top of it now, so he wants to take the wink-up approach here. Race hard for the championship rather than trying to just pick up the points and play it steady. Green flag at the back, 14 laps for this third race of the weekend for the Mini Challenge at Symmons Plains. Bargwanna on the left, Paul Stokel on the right. Of course, Stokel a Tasmanian, but he hasn't raced here in some 4 years, and the last time he did it was in a Lamborghini, but he's made a great jump to turn 1. Neil McFadden gets a bit of contact with Jason White at turn 2, and our championship leader just starting to drop back in the pack. They've swamped him. Just when you thought that the championship with 75-point break was good, he's now outside the top 10.
Yeah, and I've got to say, this is going to be hard yards, because again, we get back to when cars are very, very equal in performance, particularly on...
Oh, here we go, straight in the wall. Todd Fiore, contact there. Now, has he damaged the radiator? Either way...
Look at that, that could be a little bit naughty.
Now, this is Neil McFadden with Scott Bargwanna just in behind, and these cars punch a pretty big hole in the air for a small car, so a slipstream on the long straight really does play its part.
Yeah, well, they're a little bit different to a lot of cars. I mean, when a car's got a lot of power, it's not so much about corner speed. You can use that power to obviously get you up to speed. These cars have got to break a big square box through the air. The draft also important.
Safety cars being called as a result of that first lap drama. Stokel, the leader, and he had got a really good jump there, so he's lost that advantage. Bargwanna second, White's third from Gary Young. This is the replay. Fiore just edging across. Contact comes from David Stillwell.
Yeah, look, the real issue there is when you're squeezing someone like, well, as you say, a bit of a squeeze, as long as you give them enough room to remain on the racing track proper, which arguably that was the case, I don't know that anything was done terribly wrong there. He maybe should have maintained position.
Todd's had a good weekend up until now, a second in race one and a pole position, but that is not the way to rearrange your Mini. So it's Paul Stokel leading under safety car, race 3. Restart in the Mini Challenge at Symmons Plains in Tasmania. Paul Stokel leading the way from Jason Bargwanna. Jason White, another of the local drivers, is going with them. It's lap 4 of 14, and Stokel is pretty keen here to clean sweep the round. He's won the first 2 races, and this would really finish things off and push him right back into contention for this championship, which he hasn't really been in all year. He had some problems with this car earlier in the season, and it was his teammate Grant Denyer who was leading the championship up until, of course, his recent injury.
Well, I think he's looking particularly strong here, largely because with Bargs carrying that 50 kilos, I mean, that really is going to be hard work. And for Paul, he's got Bargs between him and the rest of the field. So it's all looking pretty good from where he's sitting.
Speaking of sitting, that was in car with Neil McFadden in the Industry Clothing Mini. Of course, a Formula 4 champ in 2003, the Gold Star winner in Formula Holden as well. The guy's been away from racing a little bit, but come back this year into the Mini Challenge. But Stokel edging away, fastest lap of the race, and that weight really has an issue for Bargs.
Yeah, and he's not going to let anyone go by in a hurry. So, yeah, look, hats off to Paul. In fact, I raced with Paul back in the early 90s in the Australian Drivers' Championship, and credit to the guy who's been around for a long time. He's hung in there, and one of those guys that's prepared to race in just about any championship.
In a V8 supercar, you wouldn't go that deep under brakes. Of course, you're travelling a little bit quicker. He's trying to get the switchback run. There's that concrete verge on the exit there, which wasn't there back in the day, so there's a little bit more room to play with. Yeah, well, it's critical. I mean, racing line on that particular hairpin is very, very critical. It's sometimes hard to pick it up with the angle, but you need to run up high, try and extend the straight, if you like, so you can get on the gas pedal to 100% throttle as early as possible. A little bit of an art in that. And it's pretty common too to have a tailwind coming down here at the end of the back straight, which carries you on into the corner a little bit faster than you used to. Yeah, well, I mean, wind this has been a big issue all weekend, Darren. Not in the commentary box here, mate. I mean, out on the track. And for these guys without big aero kits on the car, it won't so much affect the handling of the car, but you're right, what it'll affect is as you arrive down here into the brake area, you may have to pull the car up 10 yards earlier, because you might be carrying 4, 5, 6 k's an hour quicker just as a result of the wind. And talking to a lot of the drivers, these cars run ABS braking system, so you really can just drive to a certain point where you need to brake, jam your foot on the pedal, it'll stop, turn the corner and get going again. It takes a little bit of that racing art away from drivers who can use their different braking styles and lean on the tyre a bit more and try to make moves. I'm old school, mate. You know me, I reckon H pattern and no ABS in anything. Well, this is H pattern in the Mini Challenge. They don't run the sequential box, which is a bit of a rarity now. Everyone seems to be going sequential, but this championship runs with a H pattern. It's a pretty impressive little car for a 4-cylinder engine, turbocharged 1.6 litre engine, 154 kilowatts, so a bit over 200 horsepower, 0 to 106.1. That's not bad. Yeah, and at the end of the day, it still is a driver's championship, so you know, we want to actually see who the best driver is. So the more the driver affects the result, the better off I think we are.